Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. Do you want to scale your company? You want to grow your company? Why? Let's start there. First and foremost, and we're also going to spend this episode just totally shaking your brain around about why you want to scale your company, and if you're getting the right advice, if you're hearing the right things about scaling your company, and the right way to do it. I have a very special guest with me, Brad Eisenberg, and we're going to dive in and tear this apart. We're going to stop listening to the noise in the marketplace. So, Brad, we got a lot of promises to fulfill on here. I hope you can help me out. But welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
No pressure. Thanks a lot. Happy to be here.
Yeah, no pressure. Okay, take it away. No, I'm just kidding. But no, this is exciting. So we met a few weeks ago, and we share a very similar philosophy about what it means to scale a business. What makes a business truly scalable. So let's kind of start there and address that first question of why, right? Everyone says they want to grow their business, but why? What do you hear is the most common reasons people want to grow their business?
Yeah, well, I'll start by telling you the thing that I don't hear, right? Like nobody chooses to start a business because they want to run a business, right? Like that's the thing you never hear. And yet that's the thing that a lot of people struggle with and are focused on, right? So why do people start businesses? They do so because they are really passionate about a purpose, a cause. A big one is freedom and flexibility in their life, and just kind of the ability to really support the people and communities that they care about. Like those are all valid reasons to start a business. But size for the sake of size, growth for the sake of growth, just wanting to actually run some behemoth organization is something I never hear.
Yeah, and I find that so funny too. People, like you said, people always start for freedom, whether it's time freedom, financial freedom, flexibility in their lives. Does someone want to tell them? Do we want to tell them that that's not usually the case? At least from day one, right? that doesn't just happen. It's by design. Like you have to build those things into your business. So I think those are they're really good things to aspire to. But yeah, we miss that gap of saying, okay, I'm good at this product or service, or I love doing this.
Yeah.
But I need to run a business. And those are two separate things. So is that really where you start with clients, of analyzing how much of this is a business versus how much of this is just being really good at delivering a product or service?
Yeah, I mean, I think what that transition of what you're kind of alluding to is kind of where we enter the realm of scalability, right? Because if you're good at a thing and you just want to do that, like by all means, that's fantastic, right? Scalability is when we say, all right, like what's the vehicle that is going to allow this thing to continue without you being every single part of it? Right? Like what's the business model? What's the operating model? How does this thing actually run so you don't have to wear every single hat? I mean, how many of our clients come to us wearing a million different hats? And they're the doer, they're the leader, they're the manager. And at a certain, that takes you so far, but at some point, that really becomes the biggest bottleneck and linchpin for that business to really be able to reach that next level. And I hear that so much, Brandon. Like when somebody comes to me, they're like, I have this vision. I feel like I'm almost there and I've been at it for years and years, but there's still all of this mess. I just can't get quite past the finish line. Help me.
Yeah. And so I don't want to make people necessarily feel bad, because we also want to show you what's on the other side. And there's a relatively simple path to get there. In the beginning, you have to do all those things. I did all those things in my last business. Sure. And you, like, unless you're funded by venture capital investors, whatever, like it's probably a solo show in the beginning or a very small team, and you have to get there slowly. Once you build up those resources, you prove that it's a solid business idea, at least, then we need to have the scaling conversation. So don't necessarily feel bad if you're in that position right now, but we also want to show you that maybe you're listening to the wrong advice or the wrong ideas now. So let's pause right there, Brad, because I'll say it. I won't make you say it on my show, but you shared a term with me that just absolutely resonated, and that was that the general message in the marketplace from these big entrepreneur influencers is entrepreneurship porn. And I just think that's the funniest term ever because it's so true. It's all this clickbait message. It's the hustle culture. So let's break this down. Where is this coming from, and what does some of these messages sound like that people may have heard before?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought this up, right? And to me, it kind of all boils down to this. It's basically painting a picture that scalability is one thing and one thing only. And that one thing is fast and large scale growth at an accelerated pace. And when you look at that revenue chart, it's the chart that looks like a hockey stick and goes up and to the right, right? Like that is the picture of success that the media and the gurus and the hype people are painting. That if you want to be successful in business, you have to 10x, 100x, whatever x your business really rapidly. And if you don't have that trajectory that for your growth path, then you're doing something wrong. And that's the thing that really kills me, because we just talked about why do we get into business, right? We get into business because we want freedom and flexibility and like to lead a fulfilling and purposeful life. And following that path, if you look at all of those successful entrepreneurs and the people who have actually done the hockey stick growth, right? And I know several of them, and here's a secret, they're all miserable. They're miserable. Their business is controlling them. They are not controlling their business. So for me, here's what scalability really means. And it's super simple. Scalability is the ability to change in size. That's it. And too many people focus on the size part of that sentence and not enough on the ability part. Scalability is about consistency, control, repeatability. It's not about crazy fast growth.
And something interesting that strikes me about that definition, though, is you didn't say grow, you said change in size. Because
Correct.
technically speaking, if you wanted to reduce your company by 50%, if you have the ability, it's possible. It's not forced on you. You have the ability to
Yeah.
change. A lot of people do want to grow, and I respect that completely, as long as your reasons are in the right in the right place. But that's a really cool definition. I like that. So we have the entrepreneurship porn out there, and you hinted at some of those people. I hinted at some of those people in the way that we described them, and I don't think that's the place that most small business owners want to be. We hear those messages because they're the loudest, but they're definitely not the most efficient, and they're not scalable just by definition. So what is the first step to approaching scalability the right way, sustainable scalability? What do we have to do first as a small business owner?
Sure. Yeah. So, when I work with my clients, we walk through four main steps of scalability. Step number one is traction, which is, do you have a consistent and repeatable way to get new customers? This is the kind of stuff that you hear about the most in the market from the marketing gurus, the growth people. But, fundamentally, there's a reason for that. And it's you have to find a consistent path to customers, right? But once you get that first thing, which is traction, that's when all of that messaging that's out there kind of falls short. It's like, what's next, right? So the next step after actually getting customers is profit. Do we have a consistent way to deliver our goods and services so that there's enough profit left on the table that we can invest as a tool into growth, right? Profit is not the end of the line. Profit is almost a beginning, because that's a resource we can use to invest in the business. So we got to look at profit next. Third is capacity. So at a certain point, once you're doing well and the volume does pick up, does the organization have the infrastructure to handle increased volume and complexity? And then the fourth step is innovation, which is, do we have an organized and consistent way to implement new ideas. And usually somewhere along the line, steps are skipped, or we're trying to do too many things at once. We're trying to innovate new service offerings before we've actually hit profitability on, our core offerings, or we're trying to build scale, capacity for scale before it's needed. I've seen all different orders of operation, doing too much, doing too little, but those are the 4 puzzle pieces that are in place, and we got to walk through them in the right order.
Yeah, I'm curious. You see any common tendencies when working with your clients where most people lack, at least when they come to you?
Yeah, I mean, when they come to me, usually we're focused on either profit or capacity, right? So the business has done well, right? It's got that traction piece. Sales are coming in, and you're doing a fantastic job delivering an amazing service or creating an amazing product for your customers. But are we actually delivering that promise in a way that there's enough profit margin? Because I look at kind of that ratio between how much are we spending to bring that customer in versus how much profit are we actually getting off of that. And that's a little ratio I call a growth engine formula I work with my clients on. And a lot of companies are not hitting a high enough mark in terms of just a return on investment to their marketing dollars. So that's a common place that we start. And then the other common one is the capacity piece. And this is pretty natural in the course of scaling a business. Once you alluded to this before, right? We all have to start doing all the things ourselves. We have to start small. We got to build out that infrastructure, that version 1.0 on our own, our processes, our systems, the way that we operate. And you should do that on your own. But at a certain point, once you're doing more volume, a lot of times what happens is that initial infrastructure starts to break down, balls start getting dropped. We're not hitting the way that we used to before in terms of our quality, our promises, our timelines. And we just need to put in place some stronger infrastructure that can handle that increased volume.
Yeah, I mean, that makes complete sense. And when you're working with the entrepreneur, usually the founder, the CEO, they're running the company, they are the center of the decision making, which really holds back the scalability of the company. What's the transition look like for them? Because like you said, they built version 1.0. This is their baby. They love this. And now there's a team of people looking at them for direction. They don't necessarily have the skills or ability, or maybe it's even awareness, but whatever they're lacking, they haven't fully been able to build out version 2.0 yet. So what does that transition look like when you're working with them? Really, it's more of an internal transition to be able to be a true CEO rather than just a business manager.
Well, here's the good news. Most of the CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs that I work with have incredible talent and potential. Their teams do as well, by the way, right? Like there's a ton of human capital in the brains of entrepreneurs and their teams. And that is what has contributed to their success thus far, right? Usually where the gap though is, and we talked about this before, they didn't start their business because they're good at running a business, right? So all we really need to do is take the ideas that are in their head and put some structure around it so that what is an idea, a vision, a desire can actually become a real thing. And it's really simple stuff. It's just about finding out where we need to focus, right? You have a million ideas, you want to do a million things. What are the things that are going to have the biggest impact on the organization? We can rely upon data to lead us in the right direction. And then once you do have those ideas, how can we actually implement them in a way that's organized, that has structure to it, and is scalable so that as the business continues to grow and change over time, the actual infrastructure that we operate off of can adapt with us. A lot of times, when we're getting at that level and the CEO is not only the visionary, but also the implementer, that implementation takes too narrow of a lens, and it's too kind of, it's built to a version of that idea that's very static, and we need to create some structure that can flex and change over time.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of those type of CEOs too, who they have the big ideas and they want to run fast and in a million different directions. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's the beautiful part of being that sort of visionary leader, that you can see all those future directions that most people can't. But what does it look like when you give them the ability to take those ideas, put them in a structure that really is the bridge of communication to the rest of the team, that then they can use it? It's actual knowledge, data that they can run with and create what the visionary had in mind. Do you tend to get pushback from the CEOs, or does it actually liberate them to be the true leader and CEO that they're supposed to be?
Oh man, it's totally liberating. I've got a client that comes to mind in particular who, their natural ability isn't crunching numbers, but they feel so empowered when they have the numbers in front of them to show them what's working and what's not working. And by the way, their team feels just as empowered, right? It's one thing as a manager to say to your team, "Here's my expectations for what outcomes, you're responsible for." And it's another thing to say that and then have a system in front of them in which they can actually see in real time the results of their work and whether they're living up to those expectations, right? I got a mantra in terms of team culture that I work with my clients on. It's called blame the system first. Like that's the mantra. If something goes wrong, if somebody's not hitting, at a level that we're expecting, can we find blame in a system before we find blame in a person? And creating that environment where when something goes wrong, we're coming together to solve the problem rather than placing blame is not only empowering for a team, but also actually creates a culture of accountability as well, because people know that you're going to look for every other opportunity before you blame them. And that's just like the best kind of culture there is.
I love that. That's awesome. And I think this just brings us back to the beginning of the episode where I said, why do you want to scale, right? Why do you want to scale is one question. How do you know if your business is ready to scale is a second question. I think there's a solution potentially on the screen. Tell me about it a little bit. You have an assessment for the listeners.
Sure. So I mentioned before that there's 4 steps to scaling a business: traction, profit, capacity, and innovation. And at any time, your business is going to be at one of these 4 steps. So if you're not sure what step your business is on, where you should be placing your focus, or if you're not sure whether the business is ready to scale, I've got a free assessment tool linked on the screen, and answer 20 questions, and you'll get not only whether your business as a whole is ready for scale, but it'll show you which of those 4 areas you should be focused on.
I love it. That's fantastic. I checked it out. It says it takes 3 minutes when I landed on the assessment page. So if you don't have 3 minutes, just how about this? Cut out early on this episode. Go take the assessment. It's on the screen. It's in the show notes down below. Brad, this has been phenomenal and way too quick. We should go a lot deeper on this, but I do have one last question that I think is really, I love to end these episodes with a question from you to the listener. I believe powerful questions get powerful answers. That's why there's an obnoxious question mark behind my head here. But what is that one question that you want the listener to take with them really until they have an answer that will help them grow their business and maybe determine if they want to scale, what direction they want to scale their company? What is that question they should be asking themselves?
That's a really good question. And in terms of like what you want out of your life and your business, you're the only person that can answer that question. I'm talking to the entrepreneurs that are listening, right? But in terms of what question can I ask you to get you on that path is, what's the one weakest link in your business right now? One of the most common mistakes I see in businesses as they try to scale is they're trying to do too many things all at the same time, and it adds complexity and it weighs the business down, right? So rather than trying to do a lot of things, what's that one thing that if you do more of that, you're going to have the biggest return on investment? That's what I help my clients answer. That's the question I help them answer ultimately. And that's a question I would leave in the minds of our listeners today.
It's a great question. I love it. Brad, thanks so much for being here. This was a great episode.
Thanks, man. Happy to be here.
For those of you watching, listening, wherever you are, step one, go take the assessment for sure. Again, it's down in the show notes down below. If you need more Brad in your life, that's where you find him. But make sure you subscribe too. We love bringing these episodes to you 5 days a week so you can grow your business if you want to, but do it in a way that is sustainable and appropriate. No more entrepreneurship porn. Please subscribe to Harmonious at Lunch. We'll see you on the